Good morning. Happy March 1st. I was going to stretch with you today, thinking like, oh, we should wrap that up. I'm too tired. Spin wore me out. It was rough times this morning.
Yeah, but you should gotta.
Do I? Why don't you lead the stretch,
It's
Dr.
the first day of History of Women Month.
Oh, that's true. All right, everybody bend down, touch your toes. It's much easier when you're sitting. All right, I wrote a post this weekend about a book I'm reading, and Maz thought we should maybe bring the idea to Daily Dose.
Yeah, it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book, actually. It's called Limitless. Let me see if I can make that work. By Laura Gassner Otting. She's a big deal. She's been on Good Morning America. She's a New York Times bestselling author. And I'm having a conversation with her on Wednesday, which I'm quite excited about. So she used to work in HR, and then she sold her business, and now she's a public speaker and writer, and has created this idea around how to live a limitless life, which I think is just interesting from the addiction standpoint, because of course what addiction to anything does is it limits you. You can't be limitless because you are consumed with that one thing. It takes precedence over all other aspects of your life. Don't you agree?
It absolutely does. You do lose interest in everything except for what is driving that addiction.
Yeah, and we're super late to the game because this is where my "you're not the boss of me" quality kicks in such a silly, inconsequential way. In the summer, or maybe it was fall, when everybody was voraciously watching and posting about the Queen's Gambit, Maz said to me, well, would you like to watch that? And I said, no. Nope, not now. I didn't want to join. I'm not a joiner. So we started it last night, and it's fine. I agree with my friend Sarah Murray Briggs. I'm not totally sure yet what I'm watching or why people were so jacked about it, but we're only one episode in. Anyway, the point I'm telling you is, horrifyingly, they were giving these children uppers and downers in this orphanage in the 50s, which, when you consider what they were prescribing to women who had postpartum depression, it's probably not impossible that this is true. But this little girl is so fixated on the whatever she's supposed to take that she breaks into the dispensary and she shoves like 40 of those pills into her mouth. And I thought it actually was really an interesting depiction of addiction, because she's fixated on it, but she's not crazy. Nobody else has any idea that it's driving her, because she's able to manage it, which is in some ways what you did.
And she also, if you actually watch that first episode again, you notice that she also had a very well thought out plan. She couldn't get the keys, so she got a screwdriver to undo the bolt itself and not try to open the lock. Which is, for a 9-year-old, that's pretty impressive.
Well, and for someone who's so fixated on getting to the thing that her body needs. Yeah. And it's funny, I just said to you this weekend something about, I don't know even what it was in reference to, but just this notion that you didn't keep your job because you were tenured. You kept your job because you were still doing your job. And that's impressive, that you could sort of compartmentalize this thing that was so limiting, set it aside for a specific number of hours a day, and do your job.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, it speaks to the testament of the human will, actually. And, I think I've said that there were definitely times where I realized, as with so many of us, or maybe all of us, that Maz's weaknesses, which were this alcohol, also were his strength, that he could set it aside and go teach. And it's not like you weren't teaching, preschool. And I'm not dismissing preschool, but you were teaching high-level college age scientists.
See, I teach a class that teaches students to be
Yeah, but
elementary teachers.
you weren't teaching it then.
I know, but my God, that's a lot of work for them.
Right, but you're missing my point.
I know,
My
I
point
did
is
get it.
that you were able to be high functioning in many areas of your life while also fixated on this addiction, which is just an interesting thing, and gave me hope often that you could overcome it because you were able to do some things. Okay, so the whole point of this book is she has this idea that if you are limitless, you are living in consonance. So she says, simply defined, consonance is consonance is when what you do matches who you are or want to be. You achieve consonance when your work has purpose and meaning for you. And one of the things that I really like about this book is that it's not so you obviously have to quit your corporate job, or you obviously have to go work in the nonprofit sector, or you obviously have to do anything. You can do whatever it is you are doing in whatever sector, in whatever capacity you're doing it, and it can be really meaningful to you, whether it fits how we traditionally define purpose-driven, living out your mission, all those kinds of things. In fact, she starts with this great story that I think you have told me too, that when President Kennedy toured NASA, he met a janitor and said to him, "Hi, I'm Jack Kennedy. What's your name and what do you do?" And the janitor said to him, "I'm so-and-so, and I help get men to the moon." Well, he wasn't doing that at all. On one hand, he wasn't a scientist, he wasn't a researcher, he wasn't an engineer. But if he wasn't there to play his role, then the scientists, the researchers, and the engineers couldn't as easily do their role.
Yeah.
So it's not about being at the top of the heap. It's about
Being in the group.
being in the group and finding value for yourself, which I love. Okay, so then she says, consonance is the sense of frictionless belonging, of momentous stride, of core relevance. It's a guiding force that reveals how your work, whatever that may be, contributes to your overall life's plan. It connects your daily activities to the success of those around you and gives you clarity about why you, specifically you, matter. Consonance is not just purpose writ large. It's your purpose, freely and clearly defined by you and put into action through awareness of and alignment with your life's plan. So I talked about this on Saturday, and I said, that's really beautiful, but I don't know what that means, and I certainly don't know what to do with it. I mean, I have a sense of what it means, but you know what I mean. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? It's almost poetic. And then she comes up with the 4 elements, and we're going to talk about the first one today. The 4 elements of consonance are calling, connection, contribution, and control. And you have to have at least a little bit of some piece of all 4 of them. So calling is the first one, is a gravitational pull towards a larger goal than yourself. A business you want to build, a leader who inspires you, a societal ill you wish to remedy, a cause you wish to serve. And then the next chapter goes much more deeply into calling and then the other 3. But I thought it could be sort of interesting, and I really only think this because you brought it up, but this idea of what is Daily Doses calling? What's our purpose? And how does it integrate into our everyday lives? So before I read this thing, do you have a thought on that?
I mean, our calling for this would be just to, we together managed to weather a hell of a storm and come through at the other end. And there isn't a lot of successful married couples that can say the same. So the idea for this, or our calling for this, would be, well, let's talk about these issues. Let's see if we can help a few people. And let's get a message out there to everyone and explain what it is. I mean, it's still, it isn't even that long ago it was actually declared a disease. And people were treated for the disease. And, there's still some people that are outcast by any form of addiction because still people don't really understand it, or they're still ashamed of it, or they judge it, or they think it's a choice when it really isn't. I mean, it was. You could argue it was a choice to think, oh, I'll be fine if I have a drink. That you could argue is a choice, but what it does to you after that is not a choice.
Right. That's the piece that has been so important for me to understand. And I appreciate you saying that instead of me saying it, because I do feel like you and I have found sort of a place where I absolutely recognize the disease component to it, but you also sort of see my point.
I do see your point.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah,
And
I know
it's
you
a
do.
fair point, and I think that could be the flip where people. I just don't get it, because you're both kind of right, but anyone suffering from an addiction, no matter what it is, you just use my top three: gambling, drugs, and alcohol. You truly end up being powerless
Yes.
towards it. You're in a spiral, and you actually want to get out of it, but you just can't.
Did you feel like you were on a like a carnival ride that you couldn't get off of? And I know I asked a question, but Quinn and I, years and years and years ago, he was, I don't know, 8 or 9 probably, got cast in a Mall of America commercial. Do you remember this?
I do, yeah.
And we got cast to ride. It used to be Snoopy's thing where you sat in swing chairs and you went around and it went up and then kind of out.
Yeah.
And I always liked that ride because it was, like, I don't know, 6 rotations around. It was sort of like a carousel.
Well, it was subtle.
Yes,
compared to
it
being
was.
upside
You
down
weren't
and
like
screaming,
this.
yeah.
Yes. But let me tell you, it was about a 6-hour shoot, and we rode that thing, not continuously, but 6 hours of going in a circle. And I started to get really panicky about hour 2 because I started to feel incredibly sick, and I knew there was nothing I could do to get off that swing. Did you feel like that?
Yes. I did.
Yeah, I bet you did. So can I ask you a funny question? We're off topic, but this is, to me, this is the calling of Daily Dose. Selfishly,
Understanding as well.
is that it allows us to have some conversations. Not that we don't talk when the camera's not going, but we don't talk so specifically for such a concerted period of time. So why did you never admit that to me?
I don't know. I think if you admit it, then you admitting you have a problem, and I was trying to hide it from everyone and myself, thinking I could manage it. So if you can manage
Yeah.
something, you don't think it's a problem, and it's another loop that everyone falls into, which is actually a symptom of a larger problem.
Right, right.
Because everyone has the same thing. I mean, I had lunch with Thad, who's been on this show, on Friday when we were talking about it, and I mentioned the fact that they really are trying to make really high-end alcohol sexy and refined.
They're not trying, they're doing it.
And refined, and something it's very
Sophisticated.
It's sophisticated. Like if you look at the Johnny Walker Blue Label Jude Law adverts.
Yep.
And I said to Thad, yeah, no, you buy the plastic bottle because you think it makes less noise, and then you're drinking out of plastic. There's nothing sexy or sophisticated about that.
Mm-hmm. Or we don't judge the people who are guzzling the sexy alcohol, but the people who are drinking it in the thick bottles out of a brown paper bag, we have plenty of judgment for them. So the plastic isn't the problem.
Yeah,
it's an interesting
You should look
hierarchy.
them up. There's 2 of them. One's a dance, and the other one's a car race where he stops to help various people along the way. It's a very interesting couple of ads. But the whole thing is like drinking our really expensive $200 bottle of whiskey is kind of awesome.
Yeah. You're qualifying too much. It's incredibly appealing. I mean, makes me want to drink whiskey. And not only do I not want to drink whiskey, but I don't drink whiskey. So there's that. All right. So I want to read you the opening paragraph of what our YouTube channel says. Every weekday morning at 8:30, Dr. Mary and I go live on Facebook for 15 or so minutes. Our mission is to openly share our experiences with addiction so others feel less alone. Each day is all around one focused idea on alcoholism, sobriety, and or the blessings we have discovered by taking this path together. They're quick, mindful ways to start your day with tips, ways to reframe your thinking, or an important idea to consider. And on Thursdays, we invite a guest to join us to talk about their experiences too. Having additional perspectives and stories has been invaluable for us and our audience. And then we go on and say some more things. By we, I mean me. But I'm wondering if that feels to you as our faithful audience like our calling. Does it cover what you are getting from this? So that is the question for you to consider, ponder, and hopefully share some thoughts with us around.
Yes.
Yeah, we would
Please
love to
do.
hear from you. You can just keep commenting in this thread, even once we get off, which we're going to do in a second. But this book is really, really pretty powerful, and it is not only for business people. So I'll put the link up to it, and then probably on Friday, we'll talk about my conversation with Laura, because on Thursday, Jody Anderson Roper is coming, and I'm very excited to have Jody coming. She owns Cycle Bar, where Dr. Mary and I spend a fair amount of time. And she's coming on for a completely different spin.
Very
on
good.
the word addiction.
I'm glad you said that.
I know,
There's
'cause
quite a
she's-
few people out there who are groaning now, and it had nothing to do with me.
It had nothing to do with you.
Yes.
Because she is not in recovery of anything except maybe one day in the last 30 years she hasn't worked out. So we're looking forward to talking with Jody about a slightly different perspective around addiction. Have a great day.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.